So I know a lot of people in the Genshin space usually don't really care too much for Traveler or using them or doing anything with them for the majority of the damn game, which I get it, I guess, because their kit is kind of not great. But when it comes down to it, though, they are the main character. They basically serve that main character role, and we basically got to deal with that, and that's just how it is. However, as much as I am a Lumine enjoyer, as much as I do enjoy the hell out of my, golden hair Empress Queen lady, ultimately, there is things about her I gotta straight up admit that I think is genuinely ass, right? Because there is a lot of things about her I do like, and there's a lot of things about her that I honestly just do not really care too much for. And I know we have talked about, Lumine before in the past, more so in a way where she, obviously is just sexy as hell and an incest freak. But when it comes down to it, though, there is other things I feel like we can bring up and talk about. So today, what I want to do is kind of go over Lumine's character, or the Traveler's character, I should say. And when it comes down to it, kind of point out everything that I do like and everything that I do not like too much about it, right? And kind of talk about a little bit of experience of, going with that character. Because I don't know. I just feel like I wanted to do a Genshin video, so that's one thing. And then two, there's been ideas that's been flowing around my brain for a minute now. And definitely talking about Lumine and how she kind of been in the story is also one of the things that's been a topic for me to kind of want to do. So I kind of feel like, yeah, sure, why not, right? What's stopping me? Why can't I? So that's what this is going to be. So let's start off first. When Genshin first came out and it first started, obviously it was a crazy time. Nobody knew what the hell this game was. We didn't know what to really expect for the most part. And essentially when we all saw this collectively, and especially the opening scene and all that stuff, we thought the shit was going to be hype. And it kind of was hype at first, right? It definitely did have a lot of stuff that was hype going into it, right? There was a lot of nonsense also at the same time, but it was hype going into it and it was a fantastical time. And fresh off the boat, we have our Traveler character, or in my case, I picked Lumine, because of course I went for the hot chick. Of course, why would I not do that? But when it comes down to it though, she was basically our character to start up in this world of Tibet. And honestly, between the Mondstadt and the Leeway sections, she was fantastic. Honestly, probably my favorite version of Lumine as of right now, solely due to the fact that she was happier. She had basically a lot of naivety when it comes down to what this world is, basically kind of just like us, and that's basically where she was. She wasn't necessarily, overly serious or anything like that. She was just trying to enjoy her time, exploring this world and all this sort of stuff. And that's fantastic. You don't want to jump into something super serious immediately right away. Or if it has to be something serious, at least give your players time to breathe, to understand, just like the main character should have time to breathe and understand, right? Yes, obviously there was nonsense going on with, like Dvalin, and there was nonsense going on with the damn tornadoes in Mondstadt, and we ended up seeing, a lot of crazy stuff with that. But ultimately, it wasn't a bad starter. You're never really going to forget the starting mission of the game and how it kind of introduces you into it, and then also at the same time introduces you to all these new elements, but it wasn't beating your ass over the head with it like, Wuthering Waves or, a lot of these other games that end up doing that very same thing. Because dear gosh, I still don't know fully what the hell a tacit discord is, and I don't really care. Point is, it was just a part of the adventure that you can just very much have at your own pace, it feels like, and it wasn't necessarily, again, a bad start. And Lumine was obviously just there for the ride as much as we are. Fast forward a little bit more over to, things of the Leeway section, we end up, seeing things like our sibling, we end up seeing things that happen with the Fatui and more things of that note, and we are starting to really understand this world a bit more. Okay, so my first introduction to Genshin, we now gotten here past the damn dragon in Mondstadt. We basically got past Big Booty Amber, and now we basically have to see, all this other stuff going on to these different nations in their specific crisis and whatever. Alright, I get the flow of the game. And so does Lumine. And essentially, it kind of starts to get to a point where Lumine starts to not really give too much a shit about really a lot of things that's going on in this world, right? Which, granted, I understand. You saw your brother, and essentially the only thing that he told you is to explore this whole world, go through all these 7 nations, and I'll be there at the end for you, I guess. And essentially, you don't know what the hell's going on, and all you're basically focused on is trying to find his bum ass. That is literally the whole objective for like the next 3 nations, if I'm gonna be honest. Maybe even 4 if you want to include Natlan as that, but it starts to change when we get to that point. But when it comes down to it, though, we start seeing Lumine kind of not necessarily giving too much of a damn, like not wanting to join in the war with, Inazuma, with the Kamisato people and all that sort of stuff. It's basically just like, yeah, I'm a traveler. I kind of don't want to be here right now. I'm just trying to pass through to find my own damn sibling because this is some bullshit. Which, again, I understand. But it also kind of starts showing the player that, oh, she actually does have emotions and actually do want to do something else than this, right? So that's kind of how it was. It wasn't bad in Inazuma, but you started to notice the change. She started to not smile or be happy nowhere near as much as she used to be, right? Like, she lost her smile in Leeway. She on some Shawn Michaels site beat, lost her smile, and then never really come back. And that's just how it is. Then you have the Sumeru arc, which she basically was just, more serious than she ever has, not really having a smile on her face, until Dia basically said like, hey yo, if you want my help, you're gonna need to smile for me, because it's been a minute since we all see that happy ass smile. And she finally did, even though it was kind of forced, she finally effing did, which, yes, Lumine, smile girl, things may be shit, but holy damn, a smile can go a long damn way. Then we go to Fontaine, which by far personally is my biggest hatred of Lumine right now. I know, right? Crazy for me to say as Lumine #1 glazer to straight up be like, you hated Lumine and Fontaine? Yes, very much so. Now, not every part of it, The fact that she really went out her way to, let homeboy end up getting clapped by not Virgil, because Virgil was the guy that screwed over and he got clapped, but the fact that she let the guy get clapped in the first damn place by a hitman is crazy work. Again, showing that Lumine has that dark ass side of her that no one basically really get to see outside of us, the player, in that moment. But when it comes down to it, though, still, it was very much, showcasing, again, Lumine being on some type of timing, or the fact that she doesn't want to be around here too much, doing a lot of bull that she don't really care for, right? And we really see this in Fontaine really hard. Like, essentially, she very much was about ready to just box the hell out of Farina because F this Archon, I guess, and that's just how she was, fresh off the damn boat. She ends up being, like, mean as hell to, like, Lenny and Lynette, even after hearing like their backstory and all that sort of stuff, even though, let's be real, even though you are friends with Child, and Child almost destroyed the entirety of Leeway, but somehow we friends with a literal, actual terrorist of a whole ass nation, but then essentially just be chill with that, just be okay with all this stuff that went down. When it comes down to him, it's a bit crazy. It's a little bonkers. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. Man's almost Flood City versus 2 kids that basically lied to you about what they actually was doing. Sure, it still sucks. I'm not, approving of what they did, but ultimately, I feel like one's more crazier than the other, right? If you lied, then it's whatever, right? They're not necessarily out here trying to be on bullshit. They're just doing what they have to do, and that's just ultimately what it is, right? I don't see how you didn't become fast friends with them, but you've been fast friends with Child this entire time. And as we even progress through the story when it comes down to Fontaine, we slowly end up learning that, okay, not everybody in the Fatui is a complete asshole. There's still asshole things that they'll do, but they're not a complete asshole when it comes down to it, right? So get off of Lenny's meat and stop trying to get mad at Lynette's fat, juicy ass, and let's just actually start being friends real quick, right? Especially with how, Arlecchino kind of carried herself throughout the whole Archon quest, and even in her own quest, kind of showing some level of emotion and caring in some level and ways. It's just, again, how do you be fast friends with someone that's trying to literally flood all of a Leeway, but then be absolutely pissed off at somebody in Fontaine, or be hella serious all the damn time here? It doesn't make a lot of sense. it's just a little weird for me. And then even more so, outside of just the Fatui, let's go ahead and talk about Farina. Because let's be real, the only reason why she tried to understand Farina in that last section of the Archon quest is solely because she wanted answers as to what is actually going on. That is the only reason. The only reason why she even dove for her at that one cutscene was basically because she wanted answers. Not because she wanted Farina to be okay, she wanted answers. Which, granted, I understand. Farina was being mad difficult. There was literally no other way of figuring out this whole situation. But you had a front row seat to understand what bullshit you see Farina go through for 500 years. And then ultimately, basically when she asked the whole question of like, you can tell me your secret and all that sort of stuff, I'll keep it a secret, I'll listen to you and everything like that. And when Farina says no, it's not an understanding, it's not no, oh, I get it now, it's nothing like that. The bitch said fine and disappeared. Like, I'm sorry, Lumine, did you not see the front row seat of her going through nonsense for 500 years? Did you not experience the same story that we did? And that's why so many people were so pissed off at the ending, or at least a part of the ending, when it comes to Fontaine's Archon quest, because it's like, bro, Farina went through so much shit and not a damn person thanked her. Not a damn person thanked her for doing what she had to do for so damn long, because the plan would not work otherwise. Like, you can sit here and say a lot of the Archons are, very much on that hype good level, but Farina's ass, you can call her ass all you want to, you call her brat, all that stuff, perfectly fine. But ultimately, let's not act like she didn't go through something. Let's not act like she didn't necessarily suffer for 500 years, being mostly pretty much human as that whole time goes through. And it's just crazy, again, no one thanked her. And they had the nerve for her Archon quest or story quest to really just be forcing her to go back to acting, even though she literally does not want to. She's fine now, but still, it's just like, what the hell was that Archon quest or story quest for the Archon? That was bull. It genuinely was. So I'll be real, for those 3 countries, I didn't like Lumine nearly as much as I did in the beginning of the game. She was pretty much on an asshole sort of tone or whatever, and it wasn't really good. Farina didn't deserve all that bullshit, especially towards her and whatever. It just wasn't a good time. And then they try to make it up out like, oh yeah, no, they're cool together. Not really, not really. At least not in my opinion, not really. I still feel they got some beef or whatever. Until somebody effing thanks Farina for all the shit she's been through and done, I still don't necessarily think there was anything solid there. I just personally don't think that. But thankfully, at least in Natlan, they started to tone down the asshole-ish of, Lumine in general, which is great, which is very much needed. Because, again, every nation, she's been on bullshit. But then when Natlan actually come through, they actually gave her something nice. Something that no nation has really gave her before. They treated her like an actual damn hero, which is something which basically shows her that, her accomplishments is appreciated. The things that she has done is appreciated and stuff like that. And she actually is a bit more happier now. She is actually, kind of not necessarily being on some type of weird timing and all that sort of stuff. She actually is like one of the people, and that's a fun, good time, right? Like, sure, she's still gonna have her serious moments, and she will, but ultimately, it's not necessarily like what it was in the beginning of the game, but still, she is not necessarily more on that dumber, asshole sort of timing that is just very much annoying constantly over and over again. She actually does care. She actually feels like she actually has like some sort of care to her. And especially now with, the thing with her brother kind of going to New Conria and all that sort of stuff, now she's not necessarily driven by a goal of just finding this man. Now it's kind of trying to find a way to stop this guy and figure out whatever the hell she can do for her brother and all that sort of stuff, right? And that's just ultimately how it is. Even in, Nagcry, she's still, at least so far, she hasn't been on that weird sort of timing. I do feel like having Columbina there, being patient, having to wait on Columbina because she's not obviously used to a lot of the stuff that's going on right now is very good. It gives Lumine time to slow the hell down. And also, even in the beginning of the Archon quest of that, It really showcased that, Lumine was basically being a head ass and was making head ass decisions, or at least going to start making head ass decisions when it come down to the Phantom of Ether that was kind of trying to take the dang, moon artifact thing that they was trying to go after, right? Because she was making a head ass decision. She was being torn up by Nefer, which was amazing and needed because the character hasn't been scolded at all, really, ever. So it's a nice, refreshing thing to see that, yeah, you were being a kind of a dick, slow the hell down. And it's just nice to see it, right? Now, granted, let's be honest, they still in that bullshit timing in a way because, obviously they want to find their spaceship. And if they very much could, I still feel like they would very much dip off to that if they could find their whole ass sibling and actually leave if they actually could, the moment they could get the chance. I feel like that's something that they would very much do, which is, after everything that you kind of been through, kind of crazy to do that. Kind of crazy, especially since you're almost done with the venture. You might as well go ahead the whole damn way. But still, it just still showcases that, the traveler can be an ass if they wanted to. They just tried their damn best to not do so. But then they have moments where they absolutely let that shit slip, and it's never really a good time. My point is of what I wanted to say when it comes down to this character in particular is just more so the fact that Lumine is a very much complicated character in ways of what they want. They want to go ahead and do the right thing, but they also want to get the hell out of Tibet as soon as possible with the person that they cared for, right? They very much would dip out the moment they have the chance, but also at the same time, there is so much shit tied down to what they're doing to the point they really can't just do that, right? And that's just ultimately how it is. And the more they kind of go, the more they kind of really can't dip out of here like they would think so. Plus, let's be real, if they were to try to dip out and everything went their way, I still feel like somebody, whether it's the Shades, whether it's the Heavenly Principles, or who the hell ever, is going to F with them in some shape and form to make them restart this whole journey again in some shape and form. So regardless of who's actually responsible for hiding their ship and stuff like that, you can't just lead to that. You have to complete the entire story, figure things out, and then try to dip off again and try to, see what happens after that. But still, it's gonna be a minute. So she might as well get used to the damn ride by now if she hasn't been already. But I don't hate Lumine as a character. I don't. I think that she feels very valid in what she does feel. There is moments where I don't necessarily agree with how she kind of is as a character, but there's also moments where it's like, you know what, I kind of get it, right? Because again, if you're stuck in a place you don't want to be in and you kind of have no choice but to venture around, then yeah, I would kind of dip out the first chance I get to. But also at the same time, there's a lot of people in that planet that genuinely does give a shit about you as a person. They might not necessarily know who you are exactly, and granted, you didn't make an effort to tell people, right? On some Kingdom Hearts no meddling in other worlds affairs type bullshit, but still, you still have a lot of people care, whether it comes down to people that call you the honorary knight, whether it's people that is in Leeway that gives a shit about you over there, whether you're like the first sage or something like that in Sumeru, whether basically you are somebody that is, in Natlan, like Natlan's hero to Miney, doesn't necessarily matter. People give a shit about you in some shape and form, so just dipping off like that, which she has an obsession of doing for some reason in each nation, at the end of each nation, is kind of crazy. Because again, people are going to be attached to you because you've done stuff. You already invaded this planet and done, things that you're not supposed to do, or at least, for a typical traveler sort of, I guess, like standpoint, because Skirk is not even doing too much when it comes down to it. Granted, she doesn't want anything to be a part of the world, but also at the very same time, Alice also warned them to not do anything stupid like that, so that's just how it is. So you're already breaking a rule, if we're gonna be honest, descender or not, and that's just how it kind of is. So again, I don't hate Lumine, I don't, but I also don't have that overly big glaze of her like I used to, right? I really don't. And I feel like that's something I hope that they kind of do something with in the future. Kind of make you like Lumine again, or have some element to her where she is a likable character even more than she ever was, because I kind of miss first version of Lumine. I get it, she wasn't like smart about everything that was going on, she wasn't necessarily privy to all the dealings of this world, but still I miss when she actually felt a bit happier And granted, she's not going to be happy until she gets her brother back, and understandable. But still, I would very much like to see maybe her just being happy in her own way or something like that. It it just is very much something that I would just like to see, instead of just not letting her be happy whatsoever. They're starting to a little bit now, but it's like still just like I would like to see her actually be a bit more happier in general, right? Or at least have her to be just a bit more smileless in some shape or form than, what she used to be. I ain't saying she needs to be a, ditzy character or something like that, but I'm just saying I would like to see her be a bit more happier as a character, instead of just being overly serious all the damn time in every shape and form regard. So that just for me how I feel. So ultimately though, I guess that's really all I wanted to say. This turned into like a character analysis in a way, I guess, but still, nonetheless, I just wanted to go over this because it's just something that I noticed for a good minute of this character, and I just really wanted to talk about because, again, I like her a lot. I still do, and ultimately, she's still one of my favorite characters in the game, but it's just the fact that she just doesn't hit as hard as she used to, or at least there's elements to her that don't hit nearly as hard as, she kind of is now. And that just kind of is. And I guess you could say maybe it's just because people change over time, and maybe that is what it is. But still, that doesn't necessarily mean I have to like that shit. That doesn't necessarily mean I have to like it. Because now, if we're going to be honest, the more I kind of think about like how Helioverse has like all these different protagonists or whatever, I'm starting to lean less towards, wanting her, and more so liking Belle a lot more in ZZZ, because she's actually been more fun, more expressive, and not necessarily been on the same BS and whatever. But ultimately, that's just kind of how I feel. So again, that's really, I guess, all I wanted to say for this one. So hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on your way out. Also follow my socials, and if you'd like to donate to the channel, Kofi and Catch Up is available as well. And until then, it's your boy Jay, sign off. Have a blessed day.